Good afternoon. We are going to kick off our May version of our cybersecurity awareness presentation today. My name is Brian. I am the CTO here at PCA Technology Group. And today we're going to be going over a bunch of cybersecurity stuff. So let's go ahead and get started. First off, the agenda is why cybersecurity, also the common tactics or attack methods, talk a little bit about USB, mobile, and IoT devices, touch base on shadow IT. If you're not familiar with what that is, we'll discuss that, and then finish up with passwords and MFA. So why cybersecurity? Well, first and foremost is to protect the well-beings of your employees, really the safety and well-being of your employees and your people. Secondly, obviously, is to deal with the company and then client data as well, too. So, and the organization, of course, falls into that too. We'll also AI, we're gonna touch base on that. If you haven't heard about what AI is or anything about AI, it's pretty hard to stay away from now. But we'll talk about how that's being leveraged on both sides, the good side and the bad side. And then sometimes you might need a cybersecurity for insurance purposes. And you can see here as we go across the from left to right. A lot of places do cybersecurity because of insurance or compliance, when in fact they should actually be doing it for the first reason, to protect your organization, your people, and things like that. And then a lot of times it meets your insurance and your compliance as you come across natively. So if you do it from the other side, a lot of times you're not really protecting the assets that you should be protecting. You're only doing it because you're trying to check the boxes. So this is laid out in specific reasons for that. So sometimes it is for insurance purposes, but obviously, again, the idea is that you should be protecting your people, your organization, your client data, things like that. And then finally is the compliance. As I mentioned, a lot of times if you're following this across the way here, you end up being compliant. You may have to do just a few other things and maybe get an audit to ensure that you're actually doing everything you say you're doing. However, if you've implemented a good security program, it usually checks all the boxes by default here. So that's kind of how this is laid out here and works across the board. So protect and insurance, and then also the compliance is the last piece here. So this is hot off the presses here. So this data here, how bad is it? The data here that is shown just came off the recently released Verizon 2024 data breach investigations report. That is a big report that pretty much anybody in the security world actually waits for, and it just came out last week. So this basically shows the statistics of breach data that is tabulated by Verizon, and they release this out for reporting purposes. So the table on the graph table, bar graph on the left here starts off. That's basically with credentials. So this is showing ways of potential breaches, and this is enumerations in non-error and non-misuse. So basically, what that means is that the bad guys are really, really, really leveraging credentials that are either compromised through web applications or some other means, and they're really heavily leveraging these credentials to breach organizations. I can't count how many times some of these organizations have been breached. The pipeline one way back that happened a few years back. That was credentials. It was an account that wasn't disabled, and the credentials were compromised, and they basically got in using those credentials because the account was still activated. And then just recently, that healthcare organization also got hit through credentials. They weren't using MFA on anything, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. But that was another instance of where credentials were leveraged to breach organizations. So it happens very, very frequently. And you can see here, almost 40% of the breaches that are in this report are based on credentials. And then second there, you can see this phishing, and then actually a close third there is actual exploiting some type of vulnerability. So really, the top two areas there, phishing and credentials, are the most heavily used, and realistically, they're the probably one of the least technical of it, of the breaches. So you can see how this is kind of play out here. On the right side there, it shows you what happens here, and basically, some of those 68% of those breaches involve some sort of human element. So that could have been related to getting their credentials in some way, shape, or form, either pretending to be somebody that they're not or whatever, and the user just gives it to them, thinking it's somebody else. Could have been phishing, that they inadvertently clicked on a link that went to a malicious site, and they inadvertently typed in their password on a site that reported that. We'll talk about all this coming up here, but it just goes to show you they're really attacking the human element. And because that literally is the weakest link, unfortunately. And humans tend to make mistakes, and it's not a fault of anybody. It's human nature, which is kind of what it is. It also shows here that of the breaches, ransomware and extortion is what they're leveraging. These attacks are no longer, before, back in the early days. I'm not going to date myself here too much, but in the early days when this was going on, a lot of it was for maybe clout or recognition. These groups did this not really looking for financial. They were just kind of making a name for themselves out there, just saying, haha, I got you, and that kind of thing. But nowadays it's 100% financial motivated, almost 100% financial motivated. Very few of these breaches really are anything for namesake anymore. It's all financially motivated in some way, shape, or form. So very interesting and eye-opening data. And like I said, this is hot off the presses. So you can see, that it is definitely important here. So who's responsible for cybersecurity? That's a great question. If you ask individuals within your organization, I guarantee you probably most of them, if you have a IT team, they'll say your IT team, or they'll say, if you have a CISO or somebody acting as a security officer, they in the IT side, they might say it's them. Well, you're wrong, unfortunately. Ultimately, who is accountable for it? It is whoever sits at the top of your org chart. That could be a board, it could be a C-level person, CEO, whatever. Whoever is at the top of the org chart is actually accountable for cybersecurity. Now, I said accountable. Who's responsible? Everybody is responsible for cybersecurity, but ultimately the buck stops with the person at the top. It's nobody else's, cup to hold except for that person. So if there's a breach, ultimately that falls on that person that sits at the top of the org chart. Management, middle management, things like that should ensure that any cybersecurity policies that they're doing or procedures are that the direct reports are compliant, and they actively participate in the development and improvement of that as well. And that also goes along for everybody else. All the direct reports, everybody that's involved. As I mentioned, everybody is responsible. Everybody has a part in cybersecurity, but the top of the org chart is really accountable. And everybody does need to be involved and be able to add to the development and improvement of these policies as they grow. Because what happens is sometimes you're putting things in place that actually hurt productivity or hurt efficiencies. And if people, the people that weren't necessarily involved in creating those policies initially aren't able to add input, you might have the wrong controls in place. You might have too strict of controls and you need to change them, or you just might not have the right controls at all. So it's just something that you need to be aware of, that you definitely should have your people involved where they can help develop and improve this, once you kick the policy out to everybody for doing that. So As I mentioned, the bad guys are really, really targeting the human element. And how are they doing it? They're basically social. It's called social engineering. Some people refer to this as the human firewall. That's kind of an old term. However, it's one of those things where it's just basically manipulating the human tendency to trust. And it is extremely, extremely easy to do if you're good at it. You can manipulate people and they don't even realize you're doing it. And it's just what they do. It's how they do it. So some of the common attack methods, as I mentioned, phishing email is a very highly coveted form of social engineering. I would probably say 90 to 95% of the social engineering attacks are through email of some sort or another. Um, Social media is also leveraged. It could be for reconnaissance. So if I am physically targeting individuals or I get into an organization that I want to know who this is or who maybe the C-level folks are, who the finance people are, things like that. I can go to social media, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I can find out all kinds of different information through those sources. As I mentioned, the trends, ransomware is a big thing, extortion. Now it's also automation and AI. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Before it makes things a little easier now with AI, and I'll talk about that once we get to that section. Who's behind it? Criminal groups. It could be hacktivists. It could be nation states as well. Some of our enemy nation states or that aren't friendly with the U.S. They've realized this is a very profitable business model, and they actually there's people in those countries that go to work just like we do here in the U.S., except their job is to try to breach a company. That's what they get paid to do. That's their job. So it's one of those things where it's very profitable if they're successful and things like that. And as I mentioned, the attack vectors, you do have to be aware. Most of it is done cloud or the internet. Mobile devices are sometimes leveraged as well. Sometimes there's physical on-site access too. If you're a juicy enough target and it's somebody stateside or somebody that definitely wants to try to uh, leverage a physical presence. It could happen on site, so it's just something that you need to be aware of. In most cases, it's going to be probably via the internet and from some other country usually. So with that, let's kick off with web browsing. So one thing to be aware of with web browsing is if you are doing this from any type of work-related devices, you should keep your browsing limited to business use only. This will help avoid unknown sites. It could help you from falling victim into some of these, fake sites that are out there, things of that nature. So if you keep your surfing for business use only, it tends to limit that exposure, potential exposure, and falling for those traps. As I mentioned, social media, if you don't leverage that for any type of marketing purposes or advertising purposes, something of that nature, stay off of it while you're on work resources. There's just way too many things out there. And quite frankly, it's a time suck. It just, people spend hours and hours and hours on social media. And that's something you should be doing in your personal time, probably not company time, unless you guys are leveraging it. If you're leveraging it for that, that's a different story. The other thing too is keep your browsers updated. This is across the board. Any type of internet browser that you're using, whether it's Edge or Chrome or Firefox or Safari, whatever, almost weekly there's updates coming out for those, and sometimes it's multiple times during the week for updates and things like that. If you're being prompted from the browser itself, and it's usually up in the right-hand corner, I'll show you this in a second. Because the bad guys are also leveraging this to try to trick people. And I'll show you that tactic here in a few slides. If you're being prompted to update your browser and I'll show you where that is, please update your browser. Because they could, if you do stumble upon a malicious site, it could leverage some type of weakness that isn't patched yet, and you could be vulnerable at that point. Also avoid pop-up windows where possible. Most of the new browsers do have pop-up blockers built into them, but some of the pop-up, if you do stumble upon a malicious site and it's a malicious pop-up, if you do click on, usually there's a close button or close X at the top right-hand corner. What happens on the malicious sites is you click those, and it will close the window, but you don't realize there's actually a pop under window behind that window that you're closing. And while you do that, you're actually clicking a download link as well in the back, and it's downloading something to your computer that you don't even realize. So, as I mentioned, a lot of pop-up blockers do try to avoid those windows. But if you find yourself in a situation where you're not sure if you're on a malicious site or not, and you want to get rid of those windows without physically clicking on them, you could hit Control W on your keyboard. That usually closes down the Windows focus, or you can also close it with Alt F4, which will shut the entire browser down and start over from scratch. So that's one way to avoid those tactics. So this is another tactic that the bad guys have started using. So this leverages a few different things. One is it's leveraging something called SSO, or single sign-on, using fake federated login prompts. And what this does is this federated SSO basically allows people to leverage an existing login and password that they have already created on another website. So this tends to leverage like Microsoft, Facebook, Apple, Google, Discord, Steam, things of those nature. So it's also leveraging the fact that people don't like remembering umpteen different logins and passwords for every site. So they're tending to gravitate towards this type of thing if it's offered. And what happens is, in this case on the screen here, I'm going to visit Canva, and that's what has prompted me there for my Google password on this screen. So basically what I could do is I could leverage logging in here instead of, signing in and creating a new email account and login account for this actual site. I could potentially leverage, in this case, it's asking for my Google credentials. And then I'll put my Google email in there, and then I'll put my Google password in there. And because this is part of that federated single sign-on, what it allows me to do is to log into Canva using one of those other existing logins, which is great for some people. However, the bad guys have set up fake versions of this, and I'll show you exactly what they look like and how they function. And they are extremely difficult to visually detect, and it's extremely easy to fall for too. So I'll show you here on the next screen. So in the upper left-hand corner here, you can see this is a fake version of it, or a phishing version of that screen that will pop up. And right next to it is actually the real version. If you look at these pound for pound, they look exactly the same. You can even look at the padlocks in the corners. If you click on that padlock on the fake one, it will actually say it's actually Facebook. It'll match the exact same thing on the real site. The URL is exactly the same as the real site as well. So visually, there is absolutely no way for you to tell the fake one from the real one. But what happens is, if you happen to stumble upon a site that is malicious and using the fake version of this, what's going to happen? You're going to put in this case, you're going to put your Facebook login there, and you're going to put your Facebook password in there. It's going to let you log into that site, whatever site you're using this on, but it's also going to capture everything that you entered in there and send it to the bad guy who set that site up. So basically, you effectively just gave them your login and your password, and they could potentially leverage that almost instantaneously once they receive it, if they're watching real time. This is another example on the bottom here. Again, the phishing site is on the left, the real site's on the right. And this is Google, same exact thing. Looking at these, the only difference visually, and the only reason why you can see it, is because they're side by side. It does have create an account on the phishing one, but that wouldn't really raise any red flags for me unless I was physically looking at them side by side like we are here. But again, you click on the lock up there for the certificate. It's the exact same thing as the real site. The URL is exactly the same as the real site as well. So again, if you put it into the fake site, it's going to email your credentials to the bad guy. So again, visually, there's no way for you to tell the difference between fake ones and real ones. So what I am going to tell you is how you can tell. If you think you're on a site or you even want to check, if it's the real one or a fake one, what you can do now on the fake one, this looks like it's a pop-up window, but it isn't actually a pop-up window. It's written in browser code that is made to look like a pop-up window, which is why everything, even the certificate and stuff, matches. It's actually it's painted with the real information, but this really isn't a pop-up window. So the coding actually does allow it to work in the back end, but it also sends that information to the bad guy. That's how this is working. So what you want to do is if you actually go to the top window of that pop-up window that pops up that's asking you whether it's the real one or the fake one, you grab that bar by left clicking it. You try to drag. This is going to open up inside your browser window. So you're going to be on whatever site you're going to do. This is going to pop up in the middle and ask you to log in. What I want you to do is grab that top bar and try to drag that screen literally outside of your browser window. You can just drag it right off, and if it drops to your desktop, more likely than not, that's the real site. If it stops at the borders of that, it won't let you drag it outside of the browser window. That could very well be a fake version. And it's because, again, this isn't a real pop-up window. This is actually code designed to make it look like a pop-up window. And because of that code, it's restricted to actually run inside your browser window, so it will not break the borders of your browser window. So that's an easy way to tell whether it's the real one or the fake one. And obviously, if it doesn't drag out, I would be very, very cautious. Me personally, I don't leverage this. I like to create new accounts for all of my different sites as well, too. The drawback to using this is if you're breached in one area, they could technically access everything else that you're using this for. That's the negative side of this. So you have to weigh that personally yourself, whether you want to take that risk or not. And obviously enjoy the benefits of only remembering a few passwords versus hundreds of passwords on all these sites. But that's how you tell. As I mentioned, the bad guys are also leveraging the fact of browser updates. So this is called a clear fake attack. And what happens is they tend to set up malicious sites that when you go to visit the site, you might see a window like this pop up, regardless whether it's Edge or Safari or Firefox or Chrome, whatever, saying, oh, well, you know what? In order for you to visit this site, you have to update your browser. And they put these download links here where they're enticing you to click on it. What's going to happen if you click on those links in here? These are malicious sites. You're going to end up downloading a malicious version of the browser that's probably exploited or has some kind of backdoor in it that's going to allow the bad guy into your machine. You will, I can't say never, but it's highly, highly unlikely that you're going to visit a site that is going to prompt you for this, and it's going to be legitimate, especially on the website itself. What's going to happen is if you do have browser updates here, you'll probably see a little red box where these 3 lines are in the corner here on Firefox. There'll be a red box there or an arrow or a dot saying, and if you hover over that, it'll say there's an update waiting. That's where you're going to see where the update is. And the same thing with the dots here in the middle for Chrome. It would show you that as well, too. And then same thing with Edge in this case here. It would be in those corners where either the dots or the lines are. That's where it would prompt you for an update. It's usually either a dot or an up arrow or something like that showing you that there's an update available. That's the actual browser itself, not the content of the browser window that's prompting you for that. So just be aware of that they are trying to trick you and leverage that. Hey, I got to update my browser. Oh, no, So that's one way to do it. So with that, we'll jump right into email. Email here. I was at another seminar not too long ago, and the speaker was a security guy, and he was good. He was very good, but I disagreed with one thing that the person said, and because it was one of those things where he said he was tired of hearing in other presentations about how to never click on links that are in emails. Well, I disagree with that. And the reason why I disagree with that is because 90 to 95% of the phishing attacks happen via email. And out of those 90 to 95% of those emails, 100% of them are happening with links that are in those emails. So why would I tell somebody not to click on links that come in on suspicious emails when that's how they're literally doing it? And so I disagree with that. Other than that, the whole content and the speaker was really good. I just, it's just one of those things where I'm not pulling it out of my presentation, and I'll continue to say this because I know I can get people to fall for this. So that's why I'm going to talk about it, because this is how it happens. So again, sort of like the browsing, don't mix business with personal. What I mean by that is don't use your business email for personal usage. Don't sign up for your gym. Don't sign up for your book clubs. Don't do your Amazon shopping. Don't do any of that kind of thing, coupon codes or anything in your business email. Some of the tactics that the bad guys use are fake shipping notices, fake invoices, fake Amazon purchases, all kinds of different things. And if you're not doing that in your business email ever, you get those emails or you see those emails, you don't even have to think about even questioning, is this real? Is it not real? You can just immediately delete it because you don't do those type of transactions in your business email. It's so much easier to keep that stuff isolated, and it will avoid a lot of potential problems. As I mentioned, there's links. If you get emails that have embedded links in them, I personally recommend not clicking on them. What I want you to do instead is to open up a brand new browser, go to that site by you typing in the URL of the known site that you think this is, and trying to log in there. That way, you know for a fact you've got to the real site, and you're not just blindly following some link that looks like it's going to the site. And I'll show you an example of that here shortly. And you know what? Go with your gut. As I mentioned, we are human, and we tend to fall for things and trust things sometimes, which bites us. However, we also have pretty good instincts. So if you something doesn't look right or feel right, and you're even slightly questioning it, don't don't act on it. Report it or ask somebody for a second opinion, because your intuition is probably right. And there's a reason something is prompting you to question that, and you're probably onto something. So always be cautious and be aware. So here's an example of a typical phishing email. This one here looks like it's coming from Microsoft, and it's not. It looks like it's coming from Microsoft, but it isn't. And it's saying, hey, you know what? Your password's expired. So everyone's going to be, oh my God, oh no, my email, my password's expired. How am I going to do this? Well, first of all, you're you're not thinking logically, because if your password's expired, you're getting this in your email. How would you be getting this email if your password's already expired? You would be getting prompted for your password to even see this email. That's first and foremost, but that's really going down the rabbit hole a little bit. So it's kind of the chicken and the egg thing. But again, this is designed to put people in a not rational means sometimes, a thought, and that's exactly what this is designed to do. So again, you get this email, its password's expired. Okay, great. I don't think about, well, I'm getting this email, but my password's expired. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to not only include one link here to change your password in case that one isn't good enough. I'm going to include a second one below there, so you have two different links you can click here to change your password. And that's exactly what this email is prompting you and trying to entice you to do. So again, you blindly just click one of these links and say, oh my gosh, my email, and I got to change it. Oh goodness, I can't go without email. I'm so important. I got all this stuff going on, whatever. So you click on the link and you end up on a site that looks like Microsoft. So you decide to put your email in there and your password in there. And one of two things is going to happen, depending on how good the bad actor is that set up that malicious site and sent you this email to get you to go to that malicious site. You could get an error message, and it's going to prompt you for your email and password again, and you're going to get another error message. You're going to get another error message. You're going to get another error message, and finally you're going to be, I don't know what's going on here. Well, first of all, it's not going to work because you're on a fake malicious site that looks like Microsoft, and it isn't. So any login information that you're putting there isn't ever going to work because it's not the right site. Secondly, anything you are putting in there is actually getting emailed to the bad guy and sent to the bad guy. So you're basically giving them every single, if you think maybe it's this password, well, you're giving all your passwords away to the bad guy because every time you enter it, it's sending them to them. That's one instance. The other instance is if it's a fairly crafty bad guy, they'll let you do that one time. So you'll put the credentials in fake on the fake site one time, and then what I would do is redirect you to the real Microsoft site. So I'll repaint the picture of the page and I'll send you to the real Microsoft site. And then you're going to log in there and your credentials are going to work. Again, you should be questioning, well, if my password's expired, how am I getting in the first place? But again, that's, but now you just think you maybe mistyped or fat fingered your password the first time, and not even think twice about it, because it worked the second time. And then, it's kind of like, oh, well, I'm not getting prompted for my password or anything like that. It doesn't, whatever. So that's what this is enticed to do. What, instead of clicking on these links, what I want you to do, if you think this is anywhere, shape, or form potentially legit, which it wouldn't be, because it would say your password is about to expire, not your password has expired. Because if it expired, you would not be getting this. You wouldn't be authenticating to Microsoft to even get this email. But you go to Microsoft's site yourself by opening up a brand new browser. Go to login.microsoftonline.com, type in your username, type in your password. If this is any way, shape, or form legit, the minute you put your password in there, it's going to prompt you saying your password is expiring. Please, update your password. That way you're on the right Microsoft site and you're legit, instead of blindly following these links. Even if you hover over these, there's ways to make it look like it's going to the right site, even though it isn't. And you'd almost have to look at the actual code, because this is an HTML email. You would actually have to go in the background and see if there's any hidden code or what's going on and that's normally not, end user, aren't equipped to do that a lot of times. So best advice, just don't click on these emails unless it's something that you just generated. And I'll talk about that in a second here. So this is just a graphical version. I'm not going to spend too much time on here. Bad guy sends an email, target opens, goes visit a phishing site because he clicks on the link and doesn't follow Brian's recommendations. And then the bad guys get the creds and then they can log into that site as well too. So just a quick graphical explanation there. So this is another one here, spear phishing. So spear phishing is a little more targeted. This tends to be pretending to be usually a coworker or an employee, and they tend to go after HR or payroll. In this case, it's someone pretending to be an internal employee saying, hey, I want you to update my direct deposit information and I want you to do it immediately. If you don't have proper policies and procedures in place to verify the authenticity of this request, what's going to happen is you're going to change that information. Payday is going to come, and you're going to send that payroll to that new direct deposit account that was supposedly requested by the employee. And then later that day, you're going to be getting a phone call or visit from that supposed employee saying, hey, I didn't get paid this week. And you're going to be like, well, yeah, you did. We sent it to your new account. And he's like, I don't have a new account. And you're going to be, well, what do you mean? I saw this email. And then you're going to realize that you just sent this money to somebody that tricked you into thinking that it was actually that employee. So any type of financial requests, you should not be blindly following via email requests ever. You should either, if you initiate this via email, you should reach out to that person at a known phone number that you already have recorded, not one that's sent in email, in the email conversation, and verify, or make them physically come in and sign paperwork for this, or face-to-face transactions. That way, for sure it's actually that person legitimately doing that. And then there's whaling. So whaling is someone trying to leverage the fact of pretending either to be a C-level and using an authoritative figure. So in this case, it's someone reaching out to, I'm assuming Sean is somebody that probably works in the finance office underneath this person here, Roger, who is pretending to be the CFO. This is another typical one. Hey, I need you to do me a wire transfer for me today, or I need you to go buy me some gift cards or whatever. Again, any type of financial transactions like this should never, ever, ever be done blindly via email. And I'll talk about this a little bit more, but even in a video call, you need to be verifying the request as well too. And I'll talk about that here shortly coming up. But the thing is that, again, you should be reaching out to, if you think this is actually Roger, you should be reaching out to Roger at a known good contact number that you already have on file, already have on record. and verify this either by voice, or have him come in writing, or physically talk to him face to face. That way you're not blindly sending money to potential accounts that are compromised, that are going to just be set up to do it. So. And then the bad guys realize that some people are getting a little smarter when it comes to phishing. So they've started trying to do consent phishing, which is prompting users to accept permissions for applications. So this window would pop up saying, "Hey, this application is requesting permissions." And in this case, it is a malicious app. And if you're not careful and you just blindly hit accept here, you are basically giving the bad actor complete access to your entire Microsoft ecosystem. That's everything: your email, your calendars, your contacts, your SharePoint, your OneDrive, Teams, everything. And even if you have MFA turned on, this will actually bypass that too. So there's very few instances where you should be getting these type of prompts. And if you do, I would be very, very cautious on clicking them. You definitely want to do some research on it before you click on either bring it up to your IT. If you're a customer of ours, you can call our service desk. We'll take a look at it as well. But it's one of those situations where very rarely would this pop up unless you're implementing some type of integration or something. Then it could be valid. But in most cases, these are probably malicious. We have quishing. So quishing, we got a whole lot of fancy weird words that we decided to use here, but that's what the industry does. So quishing is the QR codes. These things are nasty little buggers. They become quite popular when COVID hit, even prior to that, but really, really heavily used for touchless menus and things like that, which was a logical use for them. However, a lot of times, you scan this thing with your phone. Unfortunately, because these tend to have shortened URLs, which means they don't really show you where you're going until you get there. If these are malicious, you would never know it until after you've already been attacked by it. So just be cautious when you're scanning these things. If you're getting these things emailed to you and they kind of, you don't really know what it is, I would not scan it personally. Even when I go to restaurants, I actually ask the wait staff, is this really your touchless menu? And of course, they look at me like I've got three heads or I'm an idiot. But it's one of those things where that's okay. I'm might be a little paranoid because I know if I'm attacking somebody and I want to physically get somebody, I'll figure out where you eat and I'll drop malicious versions of these on the tables just to get you, because the wait staff isn't going to know I'm doing it. And by the time they realize that, wait, we don't have touchless menus, I've already got probably everybody in the building scanning these things. So, it's one of those things where it's super easy to do. And I always ask. So, just be cautious with this and make sure that you're not just blindly scanning these things. So that leads us to AI. So AI, artificial intelligence, it's chat GPTs, your bards, your co-pilots, whatever your flavor of engine is. I'm going to talk to you about the good, the bad, and the ugly. So the good is that AI, if used in a right way and a safe way, can increase productivity. It also allows a lot of machine-driven automation that can automate a lot of lengthy, mundane human work that isn't necessarily fun to do or even needed to do if you can leverage AI to do it. So in that case, AI is great. Is it going to take over the world? No, it's not. I'm not one of those people that think AI is going to take us over and control the humans. There's just way too many things that could keep that from happening, and AI is not even there yet. So there are definitely good things. Could it potentially replace some people in their jobs? I think maybe, depending on what your job necessarily is. However, you still need that human factor involved in this. So, there might be a few places where AI could potentially take over from change things for a human. But in most cases, this is going to supplement the human, not replace the humans in that case. So Then we get to the bad. So the bad is that AI, because of how efficient and it can be leveraged, unskilled bad actors no longer need to have programming abilities or the skills that some of the old school guys had to perform some of these attacks. They can actually leverage AI to assist them in doing that. Now, the public versions of AI are set up in such a way that they keep nefarious actors from trying to do malicious things or something that could be deemed harmful. It's kind of like guardrails on it. However, the AI is simply a machine. So just like you can social engineer a human, you can also social engineer the machine. So if if I go in and ask it a specific question that I know for a fact is going to come back and say, "Oh, this could be deemed harmful," or "I can't give you that answer because it could be harmful to life or safety or whatever." Um, it's going to prompt me for that. Well, I can also continue asking it questions in such a way that I'm building off of the question I asked previously. And eventually, if I continue to do that, it's going to actually give me the answer to the what it said it couldn't give me in the first place. It's just I'm going about it in a different way, and it doesn't realize that I'm actually doing that. So you're basically social engineering the AI. It's prompt injection is basically what it is, and manipulation, and you can just social engineer the AI. So it's kind of funny to an extent, but it's also very very scary because these bad actors that don't have the skills to perform a lot of these things can actually get the AI to do some of this for them or help them with this without the skill sets to do it. And then there's dark web versions of AI now, which aren't publicly available. They are completely unhandcuffed. They don't have no guardrails. They don't have anything. So anything you ask it, it could, as long as it has the information to spit it back out, it will do whatever you ask it to do, which is very dangerous at some point in time. But the other thing to realize too is if you are leveraging AI for any type of assistance, whether it's documents or proofreading or information, you need to make sure that you are redacting any potential private information within those documents or anything you're sourcing into AI. Because the public versions, you need to realize that anything you're putting into AI or asking AI to do, it could regurgitate that back out for somebody else if they ask for it the right way. So let's say you have a document, a letter that you want to have it proofread. So you feed the whole letter up into AI. You upload it into AI. AI looks at it, gives you some edits. Oh yeah, I would word it this way, or change this, or change that. You're like, oh great. You know what? I forgot to take all the names out, and it was a client letter, and I'm not sure. Well, guess what? If somebody asked the right way, that whole entire letter is going to get regurgitated back out as info. So every single thing that you're asking it, it is learning off of all those questions. That's what the public versions of AI do. Now there are private versions that supposedly you can buy that contain your data only. It will allow you to put data in and use the data that's already there, but it won't release your data out. I am very cautious about that. I'm not saying they're not being truthful about it, but I'm able to use everybody else's data, but you're not going to use mine. I'm not sure I entirely buy that. So my recommendation is, as long as you pull the private data out and redact any potential identifying information or anything that could be harmful if it did get out, you should be okay. So that's just something you have to be aware of. And that's kind of goes along with the ugly, is that you could potentially release sensitive information using public AI engines without even realizing it. Because this is so new and it's such a buzzword right now. I mean, it isn't new. The AI has been around for a long, 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 long time. It just became more publicly available. And it's the latest buzzword, I would like to say. It's not going away, but it is really hot to trot right now. So a lot of people that may not know some of the deficiencies or the concerns that go along with this is you got to be careful. The other thing I want to bring up too, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, is video chats. So I'm not sure if anybody on this presentation has heard of this yet, but this happened a little while ago where I believe it was a Hong Kong-based company, I'm pretty sure. And this individual was invited to a Zoom meeting. On this Zoom meeting was the CEO, and a few other senior executives. And the person invited must have had authorization to do wire transfer. So whatever their role was, they had the authorization to do wire transfers. Um, so this person was interacting in the meeting, and at some point during the meeting, the CEO asked this person to transfer $20 million. So, obviously, without really questioning or concerning, this individual did do that, and then later realized that the only live person in that meeting was her. Everybody else in that meeting was 100% AI driven. They were basically deep fake versions, where you can literally just grab a few seconds of a video of somebody and their voice, and basically the AI will create and interact as if you're talking to a real person. Now, if you visually look at it, you can tell. At least now you can. You can tell, you can look at their lips and their facial expressions, their eyes as well too. You'll see there's glowing that doesn't kind of react the way you think it would. You have to really look closely. But this person was duped by somebody that set up this meeting using AI driven CEO and all the execs. She was interacting with them like they were real. So that goes to show you how, AI comes along and the bad things that can be done with that. So again, even on video, if you're being requested to do transfers, you need one of two things. What I would recommend: pick up the phone, your cell phone, and call that person on their cell phone while they're on the video. And if you see them pick up at the other end on the video, you probably have a live person. If at least you're having a secondary method to make sure that this individual is actually a real person. So wrapping up some of the anti-phishing things, again, I'm going to heavily hit on this. Be careful clicking on links, avoid those embedded links. Instead, type them into your URL yourself. The only exception I have for this is sometimes when you do change your password, or you do set up a new account or something like that, or I forgot my password, it's going to send you an email with the link in it to click on. If that's something you literally just did and that's something you're expecting, I don't say you have to not click on that link. It's probably easier if you do click on that link, but that's something you just generated and something you were expecting. If you get one of those out of the blue and you didn't just do that, that's where you don't click on those links. You should open up that browser. The other thing too, if you're not leveraging external banners, you should be using external banners. This will do a few different things. One, it's this yellow box saying, "Hey, this email's come from the outside." This also is a quick visual way to spot potential fake emails that are trying to pretend to be people inside your organization. So in all these other instances where if someone pretending to be the CFO or someone pretending to be an employee, that email is actually coming from outside in. And it would have this banner on it. So if you're seeing this and it's someone saying, "Hey, I'm an internal employee," that should raise a huge red flag for you, saying, "Well, if you're my employee, why is this coming in from the outside? It would be routed internally in my organization, not come from the outside in." So quick visual way. It also works well on cell phones too, because I know sometimes it's hard to see on your cell phone. A lot of people get email on their cell phones, so this would also help with that too, where it would bring visual verification. Other thing too, again, verify any type of financial requests. Never just blindly follow email requests. You always need to verify verbally with the sender at a known good contact number. And again, something seems off, report it before interacting with anything. Again, your gut's probably right. So quickly here, USB mobile and IoT devices, USB flash drives, those little things that we used to use. If you do happen to leverage those or find one of those laying around, don't just blindly pick it up and put it in your machine. I would be very, very cautious. Sometimes you could do that and it will automatically install stuff or run things. If you don't know where it came from, just don't blindly plug that into your machine. You also want to make sure if you are using those for maybe files or pictures or something, a lot of times architects use them for drawings. Make sure your virus and softwares are updated just so you can make sure you're not carrying something on that USB device. The other thing too, don't blindly accept electronic devices that were sent to you, things like smartwatches, Alexas, wireless, access points, iPads. If I'm physically trying to breach a company, I'll spend $400 on an iPad that's compromised, and I'll send it to you. And the first thing you're going to do is open it up. You're so excited you got a brand new iPad, and you're going to connect it to your network. And I just breached your network by spending $400. And this was a tactic that was used, unfortunately, on some of our military personnel. They would send these to soldiers blindly, in the hopes that they connect them to the network, which they sometimes did, and now they've got a compromised defense network that they were connected to. So just be very, very cautious with that. That nothing's free. So, and it's cheap money in the long run to just blindly send compromised versions of this stuff to people that have backdoors or software that allows them in from the outside, and you don't even realize it. So if you do use IoT devices, that's things like your camera, your rings, your thermostats, your everything's smart now, TVs. I would recommend running those on separate networks. Don't share those on the network that you use for all of your other devices. First of all, you're probably not updating any of those devices, and everyone's like, wait, I got to update those? Yeah, you do. They don't just magically update on their own. So, if there are any compromises on those things, and you're not updating them, they're out there basically potentially open to the internet that could technically be found if you're not careful. So just be aware of that. The other thing too is almost everybody has a smartphone. If you go to charge these things, a lot of times it's a USB cord. You take it, plug it into your phone. Some people will take it and plug it into their laptop or plug it into their desktop. What you may not realize is, yes, that will charge this, but it also turns this sometimes into a USB flash drive. So if there's something on this laptop or on this phone that's waiting to be plugged into a Windows laptop or a Mac laptop or something of that nature, it could run automatically by you just trying to charge your phone. What I want you to do is use the wall brick or the cord part that goes into your outlets. Use that to charge your phones. The other thing too is out and about in public, be very, very cautious of public charging stations, airports, sometimes they're hotels, coffee shops, same concept. There you go over there. Oh my gosh, my phone's out. I'm just going to go plug it into this public charging station. Well, if that's a malicious version of it, it's going to charge your phone, but it's also going to steal every single piece of information off your phone while it's charging it if it's malicious. I'm not saying all of them are, but there's potential for that. There are some ways that you can get little plugs that will keep that from happening. But honestly, wait till you get to your car, wait till you get back to your room, whichever. And that is better to just use that wall charger or use your actual car to charge your phone. The other thing when it comes to phones is vishing. So vishing is basically calling somebody up and pretending to be somebody you're not. This is another form of social engineering. This is how MGM and Caesars just got hit recently. Basically, the bad actors just called up somebody and said, hey, this is IT. Notice a problem on your PC. Can we get remote access? They're like, sure, you can have remote access, and let them right in. It was the easiest hack ever. So you always want to make sure that anybody that's pretending to be, helpful, you want to make sure you verify that person and verify the authenticity. Clients of ours, we recommend, sometimes we will call out of the blue because we have, monitoring on your machines. We may see something that you don't see yet. So we might call. What we tell them is basically, if we do call you out of the blue, just say you're busy. Even if you're not, call us back in 5 minutes, and we will, ask for that person. If it's really us, you'll go transfer to that person, and we'll take care of your issues. So you always got to do some verification. Smishing is when it comes to texts. These are just blind texts you get. A lot of times these are, hey, had a great time last night, or hey, can't wait, look forward to our next date. And you respond back saying, wrong number. Well, guess what? They got you interacting. That's exactly what they wanted. Now they're gonna, oh, well, that's okay. Well, I got, they're just gonna keep trying to go down the rabbit hole with you and things like that. Don't respond to texts you don't recognize. Block the number. Don't interact with it. Get rid of it and move on. That's the easiest way to avoid those type of things. So shadow IT, this happens a lot when people are installing things on their machines. If they take them home, it's like, oh, I need a PDF reader and I don't have one, and I'm just going to install this one that I downloaded from the internet. It's installing software that isn't necessarily approved either by your IT or or your security policies. Could also be using, cloud applications to store files. Oh, well, I need to use this file, and we have no way of getting it. It's too big to download, so I'm going to put it up in Dropbox or Google Drive or iCloud. Well, do you have authorization to do that from the company? Is the data you're putting up there, private information? Who's monitoring that? Who's getting rid of that? That's all forms of shadow IT. The other thing too is remote access. I need to access my computer while I'm away on vacation or something, and install whatever, some type of remote app that could potentially be leveraged by bad guys. So these are all forms of shadow IT and things that need to be watched out for and made sure that things are being discussed to people throughout the organization. Sometimes it is, security protections, as I kind of mentioned earlier, that you might have protections in place that are too restrictive. And that's where you need to have that input from people. Hey, I can't do this, and I have to constantly try to go around this and slow me down and things like that. That might be the wrong control. Very rarely are they deliberately circumventing it, but sometimes that could happen. If you have a malicious person or someone that has a vendetta, an employee that has a chip on their shoulder or something, sometimes they could be deliberately circumventing things. And obviously in that case, you have to look at other means of remedying that. But in most cases, these are shadow IT isn't always malicious. It's just trying to get your job done, and they don't realize that they're potentially putting the company at harm. Leads us to passwords real quick. So I recommend 14 characters at minimum. You should have at least one special character, uppercase number. I highly recommend leveraging password vaults for these, whatever your password manager is. The only one I'll say to stay away from is LastPass. They've had a lot of issues recently, and I would not recommend those. There's a whole bunch of other ones out there you can pick from. This avoids you having to remember your password. It also helps with fake sites sometimes too. So that SSO thing in the beginning, if you are leveraging a password manager that is doing auto populate, which means it recognizes the site, it will actually auto populate the password in there for you to log in the password once you hit that site. That'll keep you from hitting some of those fake sites. So if it doesn't auto populate and you think it's Microsoft and you have your Microsoft credentials, obviously it's not the right site because the password manager is recognizing that and it's not auto populating it. So this also has been updated. It shows you how fast it takes to crack some of these passwords. Now, some of these, anybody that was pretty observant realizes that this has changed a little bit since last month. And the reason why is because the hashing method went from MD5, which was very quickly running out of room on this chart here. They've changed it now to bcrypt, which is a different type of hashing method, which takes a lot longer to brute force. So this just is kind of a new updated window that we're talking about. So MFA, what is MFA? MFA is multi-factor. It's basically something something you have is an example of it. Something is your username, your password. Something you have is usually your phone or a token that is generated off your phone. This does stop many of the attacks out there. It is not 100% foolproof, but it's better than nothing. If you're not leveraging a multi-factor, you should be. And that's just something to be aware of. So MFA fatigue is something the bad guys are leveraging. So if you are leveraging MFA and you're using push technology, which means you're logging in and it's saying, hey, is this you logging in? The bad guys sometimes will leverage that fatigue and basically send you all these messages. Now, this only works if your credentials are compromised. So whatever site is prompting you for that MFA token continuously is your credentials are compromised. Instead of hitting yes on it, because you're sick of getting these messages, go to the site, change your password. It'll stop because the bad guys now don't have your password any longer to do this and leverage this attack. This is just a graphical version of how a bad guy could potentially get your MFA token. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because we're running short on time. But some security reminders to wrap this up. Don't click on emails again within our links within emails. You always want to verify the person is who they claim to be. Make sure you're utilizing strong passwords, MFA. Store those passwords securely in some type of password vault. Think before you act. That'll definitely save your bacon. Make sure your backups are being done regularly. And that's pretty much what we have here. So we do these on a monthly basis, and the content does change based on how things are going in the world. Some of it is replicated, but most of it gets updated as we need to. So I thank you for your time today. I don't think, let me just check chat here in case anybody has any questions. I do not see any questions here. So I thank you for your time. Hopefully this was helpful, and you have a great day and look forward to seeing you again sometime in the future. Take care, everybody.